Hello and welcome to the 17th day of January 2022. I'm Kurt and this is my Good Life Meditation. This is something that I do every day to remind myself of my life objectives and principles, to consider how I did yesterday applying these, and then to plan for the coming day. First, yesterday and last night. Very good night of sleep. Got to bed a little later than usual, so I'm feeling a little bit tired this morning. I slept in a little bit. I let the alarm go. It's a holiday, so it went off at the usual time, but I slept in a little bit, so I'm a little off schedule. Prefer to remain on schedule, even on holidays. Yesterday was a good day. Had a free day with my wife. Our chores were done, and all of our house cleaning was complete, so we went to Miko got a late start. She stays up late, and she's very able to sleep in on holidays. I got up at my usual time, and I did the dogs, walked the dogs, and did some very productive work on the new book, The Good Life, yesterday. So there was that. Then we went to Yumiko and I, after breakfast, we went to Joshua Tree and had a nice day there yesterday. It's a community out in the desert near Joshua Tree National Park. And we went antiquing at the eclectic stores out there. And one of the things I did was we had a nice time. And we went to a restaurant called Crossroads Cafe, which is kind of a hippie joint where I'd been once before. It was nice. This time it was kind of very busy, very, very crowded. So kind of, felt that just, that, what do you call it? That assembly line kind of a feel to it, getting customers in and out, right? Which can kind of, not dampen, but just kind of take away from the more spontaneous feel of a meal. It's like, I imagine what it would be like to be in Paris at a street side cafe where everybody wants to dine. Just get them in and out. For the tourists, that is, mainly. Then locals would probably go somewhere else. So that's what that was. Something that I did that I thought was interesting was we had gone to one store that I thought was particularly interesting, and I noticed they had, it was a furniture store, and I noticed that they had some very beautiful books on by local desert authors on desert themes. And I thought, hey, maybe I'll see if they want to carry Going Alone. I think it's got a pretty cover, and it's certainly a desert theme and a local desert theme. So having taken the whole setting of the book taking place out in Siberia, which is 50 miles from that area, out deeper in the desert. So when I got back, in the evening after dinner, I got on the computer and I located the store's email address and sent them an email offering to send them a copy to consider. So we'll see what happens. I did also then in the evening, I worked on, again after dinner, I had the computer on and I worked on updating Going Alone, all versions, 3 versions of the document that are available on Amazon, and then the online version with some changes that I needed to make, including the addition of a new quote. So it was a good day. Let's do my Good Life meditation. 7 objectives. These are to, 1, be always ready to die. To have everything in all my affairs in good order. To have my art in order and my relationships in sound condition. 2, to make good and effective use of my time. To not just waste my days. 3, to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. That's these 7 and 30 that I'm doing now. Next is to cultivate good emotional reactions so that whatever happens throughout the day doesn't push me off any edges, but I can keep my balance. Next is to perform good actions, just to do good things throughout the day, Next is to always recognize my true limits and true opportunities, so that I'm attending to activities that are actually reasonable and worthwhile and pursuable, doable, and avoiding things that are not. And if not avoiding them, at least being apathetic towards the things that I can't are out of my control. That'll come up again when I get to temperance. Apathy, the ability to recognize things that I can't do anything about, and to not let them sway me, particularly my emotions. And then the last objective is to just do one thing at a time, at all times, and to do that thing slowly and deliberately, to basically avoid multitasking. Excuse me. Now my 30 principles. One is to be at war with everything that I hold as true, to not hold things reverently or complacently. Two, to use reason as the instrument of that war, and particularly to be honest, objective, and always a skeptic, at least for the stuff that's important. I'm not skeptical necessarily of mundane claims. Yesterday, Yumiko wanted to get a smoothie, and I asked the waitress if they had smoothies on the menu, and she claimed they don't. I'm not skeptical of that claim in the least. Next is the Anchorhold, the simple proposition that our consciousness is a byproduct of our biology, and that it will wink out when the blood pressure drops to a sufficient level, or other disease cause my brain to shut down and then die and disappear with me. Oh, to that end, I had an interesting conversation with my wife yesterday. I'm reading a book recommended by my friend Juan. The book is called Neuromancer, and in that book, it's a science fiction book. There's a character who is dead, who has died, in fact, but his brain structure and activity was successfully transferred into basically a cyber, not a cyborg, is basically into a computer. And so he basically carries on. It's at least a facsimile of himself carries on. And I mentioned that to Yumiko, and I asked her, knowing the answer already, but I asked her anyway, would she be interested in that? And her response was this short of a hell no, but a definite no. And I asked her, why not? Why wouldn't you want to carry on in cyberspace indefinitely? And as usual, Yumiko doesn't need to think about these things. She just knows the answer, her answer. And she simply mentioned that it would be too hard. And I asked for clarification, and what she meant by that is that life is hard. And who the hell would want to stick around and continue going through all of this, even if it meant you could enjoy the good things? I didn't dig too deeply, but her point was well taken. And I was reminded, and I shared with her the observation of Christopher Hitchens, that the late Christopher Hitchens, who indicated that on the suggestion of immortality, namely the promise of God that of living forever, is what a ghastly idea to be forever, to be living on forever. I can't say it, of course, in the beautiful, eloquent way that Hitchens could do it, but the point was taken. I would probably, given the option, and maybe I would one day regret my decision, I would choose to take that, because I'm curious. I'm curious to see the future. I told Yumiko I would take it, but I would take it on the provision that I could exit out, if I so desired. Conditional immortality. And for that matter, let's say the traditional view of immortality, the religious view. What kind of life would that be? I mean, some portion of the people, what kind of immortality would that be? Some portion of your loved ones are going to, if you're a Christian, are going to go to hell. Or if you're a Buddhist, some sects of Buddhism, Muslim, others, they're going to go to punishment and damnation. How could you possibly enjoy eternity? How could anyone enjoy eternity knowing that certain of their loved ones are simultaneously experiencing an eternal suffering? And if you can enjoy that eternity, wouldn't that mean that you're not yourself anymore? If you can enjoy it in spite of that, then what kind of monster are you? Or what kind of monster did the deity make you into, so that you could enjoy that blissful ignorance, or at least rob you of who you are? Interesting. Anyway, I just really straight off point there, huh? So that's the homunculus, the kind of the emergent quality of consciousness that dies with us. It's the reminder that it's not immortal. Next is the home of good and evil, the idea of a little rock sticking out of the sea. The sea is death. The rock is the tentative position above death that we hold while we're living. Well, the seas around us swirl, and each of us stands on our own rock, and the rocks are slippery, and one day we'll fall in, or the waves will rise to envelop us. But we're all doomed. It's a gloomy worldview, this good life, isn't it? It's got its gloomy bits. Well, life is gloomy. Life is full of that's why Yumiko doesn't want to stick around forever. Next comes the home of good and evil. Right and wrong are nothing more than opinions that we develop and hold and share with one another, and sometimes reach some sort of consensus when we are in agreement. The principle of purpose. There are 3 purpose in my life. One is to be a parent. The second one is to live a virtuous life, helping to improve the well-being of thinking creatures in particular, and then also to pursue some mission. And my mission is the sharing of my book, or namely the message within my book, Going Alone. So the experience of going into deep wilderness alone, apprehending the experience of what I call the great indifference, the emptiness of the universe, and then the resulting objectives and principles, the 37 that I'm reciting now, that resulted. The next principle is the atomic principle, the idea that everything is bits and pieces, atoms and molecules, that in very short order will dissolve away upon death, if not immediately upon death, very quickly. Good luck with that embalming fluid. Next comes the principle of nature. Everything has some particular nature. It's good to recognize what that is, so that we can abide that. It's the nature of holiday days like today to be kind of have a bonus feel to them, and also kind of a feeling of what do I do? How do I make good use of it? Oh crap, I got to go back to work. Oh crap, I have one less day to do the stuff I need to do this week. That's next is the principle of maturity. No, the pirate ride. Free will is seemingly an illusion. We are directed by the inertia of the universe into making the decisions that we make, which feel like they're our own choice, but I don't think they are. I don't think we could make any choice other than the ones we did. Next comes maturity and the principle of wisdom, sub-principles of wisdom and fortitude, which are what make up maturity. When we're wise and we remember both our successes and mistakes, and we're strong, particularly in not repeating the latter. Excuse me. But social principle, we're social animals, we need each other. Public speaking, The idea of using very carefully chosen words, few words, keeping our silence, and to never gossip. Temperance, the controlled consumption. Very similar to public speaking, but controlling not only our speech, but also how much we work and all our recreation, eat, drink, and everything. Just very careful consumption of our lives. And we live simple lives when we do that. And we suffer a little bit because we are constantly denying ourselves what we want. And again, apathy. Apathy applies to temperance, where we are limiting, or we're recognizing what is outside of our control and letting ourselves be, if not affected, but giving up. It's almost like giving up. It's like releasing our hope to change what is outside our control. Man, that's well put, if I do say so myself. Next is the horror show. Life is chock full of utter horror that we have to recognize and carry with us and bear that fact with us. That's the next principle, that which must be borne, which is not only the fact of horror, but also the things that we just simply have to do that are part of our mature life, the bills we have to pay, the jobs we have to do, the difficult circumstances we find ourselves in, the very things that make my wife not want to be immortal. We distract ourselves. That's the next principle. We don't want to see the emptiness of the universe, the great indifference. So we keep ourselves busy with TV and radio and our jobs and gossip and etc. It's a chilling, sobering thing to stop with a distraction and witness the emptiness of the universe, which I call the great indifference. The best seat in the house is where we are now, who we are, and what we're doing. And not wanting to be anyone else, or doing anything else. Tricky balance, that. The path of wildness is a way upward and forward into and through new life. It's when we want change in our life. We want something different. So we decide on a relative direction. We begin to collect facts, prepare to make a decision, maybe get some more facts, and ultimately lead with the decision founded on our collected facts, and maybe pushed to one end, pushed to one direction by our gut feeling. It's a way to keep moving forward so that we don't get stranded. The risk of avoiding risk suggests that there are surface level risks in life and deep risks. The surface level stuff is things like getting an education, finding a spouse, getting a good job, buying a house, saving for retirement, having kids, etc. The deep level stuff is finding ourselves and living a life that seems to have met some inner mandate or some drive to become and do more than just deliver on the status quo of biology. Status quo? No. Deliver on the mandate of biology. That's important. It's probably the most satisfying of all purposes, but there is more. For at least some people seem to desire that, me being among them. That's why I wrote my book. That's why I had the experiences that led up to it. Good thing I did when I did, because although I'm getting too old, you're kind of run out of time. That's the point. Do it young. Have the experiences at least young. And then when the muse starts to speak, write that down. I'm getting ahead of myself. Sin and damnation is the next principle. There are 7 sins in my worldview, and these are being false, being untrue. Falsity is what it's called. Believing too easily. Credulity. That's what that is. Accepting of things and using that acceptance as the evidence of the belief, which is faith, which is a grave sin. Hope is another sin where we want something different, but we're not taking any action to necessarily do that. We're simply desiring a different outcome and hoping that somehow that'll happen. A dogma, belief because the proposition is backed up by stacks of writing or a blessed truth in the book that we love. Authority, believing something because someone who seems to be pretty impressive suggested it's true. And then gossip, which is a grave, deadly sin. The consequence of these sins is damnation, but not in some afterlife, in the here and now. The next principle is complete oblivion. When we die, we are utterly swept away, but to nowhere. We are swept into oblivion, the same place that a candle snuffed out. Where does the flame go? It goes basically into nothing. And where the music goes when we stop that. So too you and me, into oblivion. And in that oblivion, there will be no reunion with the people that we loved and left behind. And as a result, there's no chance to reconcile with them. And there will be no justice if justice wasn't met out during our lives. The next principle is the great life adventure. One or more interesting experiences during the course of our life, preferably when we're young, initially when we're young, maybe throughout life, that help to form the centerpiece in the story of our lives, the thing that helps to define who we are. I recommend the decade of the 20s for the great life adventures. It's a decade when we can afford to fail. We can maybe even recover from that. The next is the principle that is the season of philosophy, which is a time to record what we've learned along the way. To get down in writing or painting or photography or dance, whatever medium you choose, whatever inspiration comes. Next is the bullseye aim, a simple idea that we usually strive to hit the target, and we usually miss. Then comes the uphill climb, which is a steady climb up, up, up through life to higher reaches, where the view becomes more expansive, beautiful, but it's chilly up there. The air is thin. And for that reason, some people choose not to climb, but to simply settle in wherever they found themselves when they first got tired, or wherever they found themselves when they were born. Arena and utility is next. Life is this experience that happens in this seeming forum of our existence, the home, the family, the community, the job that we find ourselves surrounded by and engaged in. That's the arena. And whatever principles and objectives we developed or found, those are the tools that we use in that endeavor. Nothing is enough. Sometimes just less is better. Sometimes not at all is best. And then finally, the principle of fun. Just a reminder to have a good time through life, to not take things always so damn seriously. Enjoy a game, have a piece of pie, take a nice long Sunday ride, stop and take a photograph with the concrete dinosaurs. Whatever the case is. So now, that was my good life meditation. Let's think about the coming day. I don't really have any plans for today. I know Emily's home. I heard her come home late last night. The dogs woke up. I'm just going to let the day be without any plan. All of our chores are done. The house is cleaned. We had a good adventure yesterday. It might be a good day just to stay and hang out and enjoy this beautiful home that we are living in now. A new perspective, a new idea of just staying at home and enjoying it. Maybe take the dogs for some good long walkies. So to that end, I don't expect to have much need of my objectives and principles today, other than as to keep that foundation resonance going. You know, that if I'm not actively pursuing them, at least they're informing my living. So let's call it a day. Thanks for joining me. Or let's call it a morning. Let's start the day. Thanks for joining me. I wish you all the best. Be safe, but not too safe.